Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is the security news update for July 3rd. Tomorrow will be July 4th, America's birthday. Hopefully, everybody takes time to remember the folks that have taken care of us and our independence over the many years. Right now, under security alerts, OpenSSL, which is an open source version of the SSL library, very popular, used in millions of computers, once again is getting hit by a vulnerability. There was a vulnerability in version 3 of the library, which is the current version of the library. And that was patched in version 3.04, but it turns out that that patch can be compromised trivially. And so now there's a 3.05 version. The good news is that the vulnerability was discovered very quickly. So hopefully not a lot of people have put 3.04 on their computers, and this would be on servers, of course. So if you did, or if you're running an earlier version of OpenSSL, you need to update to 3.05. That is the current version. Next, under the reference section, NIST has released a version of the Mac OS secure configuration guides. Up until now, they have released it as a text document. Now they realize that most people or many people are becoming using automation in their systems. And so from now on, they're going to release this as a file which you can import into your SCAP tool of choice and use that. There's multiple baseline configurations, kind of a lightweight one, a moderate one, and a strict one. These configuration things came out of a collaboration between NASA, DISA, and Los Alamos National Laboratory. So if you have Macs in your environment, this is probably a good thing to look at. Most of this is going to be for folks who are working with the DoD and as DoD contractors, but could be others as well. Next, and probably the largest cache ever released at one point in time, researchers disclosed 56 separate vulnerability in industrial control software. This is an area where everybody has been sort of treading very lightly because they're worried about breaking things. The bad guys don't care. Obviously, if they break things, that's probably a plus from their perspective. 10 different vendors, 56 vulnerabilities. Probably some, significant chunk of these, the vendors have released a patch, but whether anybody actually installs the patch is a whole other conversation. And of course, now that that's all out there, that is food for the hackers to go off and try to compromise these industrial control systems. On the legal front, two items this time. One is that the feds, in the largest fine ever, have fined Ernst & Young $100 million for basically cheating and falsifying documents. So the cheating comes from, curiously enough, lying about ethics training exams. Perhaps they need to revisit the exams. And the falsifying documents comes from, they apparently had been under a watch because of, I don't know what I'd call it, but problems, I guess, with previous audits in previous years that they had done. They stole a list of audits that the feds planned to revisit, and then they went off and changed the audit documents after the fact, I guess, to reflect reality. $100 million fine, and a bunch of other things that they need to do to get their act in order. Part of one of the reasons why they got fined so much is that Ernst & Young said, oh, no, we don't have any problems with cheating and ethics and stuff like that. That's all, we're all good there. And apparently according to the feds, they knew this was going on while they're lying about it. So didn't put them in a great position from the feds' perspective. For everybody who uses these large shops to go off and do their audits, now probably want to be rethinking about, is using a large shop really the right thing to go do? Maybe yes, maybe no, but certainly I'd be asking a lot of questions. Next, China put Walmart in the naughty box because of their security weaknesses. Probably this is related to the fact that Walmart, for whatever reason, in China has been showing out of stock status for products made in the Uyghur region of China, which probably upset the Chinese. And as a result of that, the Chinese said, well, we in 2021, we found these 19 exploitable vulnerabilities in your network, and you didn't fix them. And that's a violation of our internal security law, and you better go fix it now. Right now, these are showing up as administrative warnings, but obviously that could change in a heartbeat given this is China. On the education front, and this is always a challenge, sextortion is a real problem, and Netflix has a series called The Web of Make-Believe, Death Lies in the Internet. And episode 4 is on sextortion, and they interviewed a bunch of teenage girls about their, what happened to them in the situation. And fundamentally, I think there's two strong pieces that come out of this. One is that the girls were shamed, they were embarrassed about what they had done, and they didn't really know what to do about it. So this might be a way to share the subject with your teenage kids of both genders, and have a conversation with them that they can come to you and not be in a situation where they have to try to deal with this themselves, which some of them tried to do. Next, in the hacker department, Slovak Telecom was hit by a cyber attack. Right now, the company's website is down. Their app is not working, and their help desk services are limited. So this is the entire, effectively, country who uses Slovak Telecom. And then in an extremely embarrassing situation for the California Department of Justice, they launched a new dashboard this week, and there was a bug in the dashboard which exposed the names, addresses, and license type of every concealed carry holder in the state. At this point, they're not saying whether this data was downloaded, whether people figured out that this data was exposed or not. But they're not even saying how long it was exposed for. But hopefully, if this was a new site, this is not a bug that was carried across from the old site, but rather something new. So hopefully it wasn't too long, but I don't know. In the daily news items, California is assuming this bill actually becomes law, and I think that I'm hoping that's a bit unlikely, but we shall see. California Assembly Bill 2273, if it gets passed, will fundamentally change the way the internet works. It requires that people doing business in California verifies that they know the age of the people that come visit their site, and that the content is age appropriate. What that means, of course, is that you have to know the age of everybody to know whether it's age appropriate or not, which means you have to collect data on people, which means you can't do anonymous browsing at all. It goes away. And now all this data becomes susceptible to being compromised in hacks. It's being in this, given this is an election year, is being done as, well, we need to protect the children, which of course it doesn't do, because the children can very easily lie about their age, or grab their parents' driver's license or whatever they're going to do. So it won't really do that, but it certainly will allow people to go pander to a particular group of people who think that the internet has too much content on it. but I think ultimately the objective there is to censor the internet and eliminate any form of anonymous browsing, which of course the law enforcement folks would love. So and a bunch of other people would love too. So we shall see whether this bill gets passed. I'm hoping the odds are low, but I don't know. In a recent study, we found that even though executives are prime targets for being hacked, only 8% of the C-suite executives who responded to the survey broadly use multi-factor authentication. There were folks who use it in one place or another place, but broadly only 8%, which means that 92% of the executives who have access to the most sensitive company information are not using, what is considered standard, and not even best practices, but standard practices for protecting that information now. So, if you're in charge of your company's security, I think if your executives are not doing that, you got a real hard road to hoe. But I think you got to convince them that they got to do that. So next, one, but only one FCC commissioner has asked Apple and Google to boot TikTok off their platform. I think it's pretty clear why, and it may not be a bad strategy, but you may recall the last administration tried to do that too. And legally, that's a real challenge in the United States. You got, private industry, government telling private industry what to do, and First American rights, and all kinds of First Amendment rights, rather. So it's a real challenge. I assume this commissioner was not doing it because he thought he had any chance of actually causing that to occur, but rather because he, again, election year, he was pandering to a particular part of the political base who thought that would be a good thing, and he could go off and say, look what we're doing. So we shall see. I don't think that's going anywhere. Even though the request came on FCC letterhead, it was not an action that the FCC took a vote on, which is the way the FCC works before they take actions with folks. And I don't think that this is even within the FCC's purview of things that they can do to go off and tell some private company to go off and take some particular application off their website. I don't think so, but who knows? And lastly, in the security news bites, Russia got mad at Lithuania when Lithuania refused to let their coal and steel trains pass through Lithuania to for the Russians to sell their stuff. So they went off and hit Lithuania with a denial of service attack. The Lithuanians said, "Ho hum, we'll just shut down our websites until you guys get bored and go home." One of the challenges with denial of service attacks is they take a lot of resources for however long you want to do that. So, the Russians really, it was a meaningless show. And after the Russians got tired of it, the Lithuanians turned their websites back on, and everything was happy. China has been forever pretty much owns the market in the sale of refined rare earth elements. Rare earth elements are used in all kinds of things, from batteries to chip manufacturing to stuff like that. So we're really, China has us in a bit of a stranglehold. Both the United States and Canada are trying to build up a rare earth elements industry, and China, in typical Chinese fashion, started a disinformation and misinformation campaign against these guys. It does not seem to be gathering any significant steam, but that doesn't mean that the Chinese won't continue to try. You're threatening their livelihood and their ability to go off and control us to one degree or another. So they really don't like that. The feds are working on a national privacy law. It's got enough in it to make everybody upset, but doesn't have enough in it to make anybody happy. So we shall see what happens there. I am not counting on it passing, but stranger things have been known to happen. So we shall see. It does have a somewhat limited private right of action and a few other things that have been sticking points. There's some stuff around forced arbitration that it seems wants to derail. So we shall see where it goes, but at least the feds are trying to do something. We have found in the wake of recent unpopular, with some folks, Supreme Court decisions, that the Supreme Court is not immune to hackers. And in particular, the justices have been doxxed. Their home addresses are being put out on the internet, their credit card information and other private information is being published. My guess is that that's going to be really hard to stop. You can pass a law about it and you can try to take it down, but it's the game of whack-a-mole. So that's really not going to work very effectively, but you can certainly try. And finally, Walmart is being sued by the feds for turning a blind eye to money laundering. They do a bunch of money transfer stuff, and they use MoneyGram and Western Union as well as their own stuff. MoneyGram and Western Union already agreed to pay the feds hundreds of millions of dollars in fines for them turning a blind eye to money laundering. And what this is in particular is, where hackers go off and convince vulnerable people to send the money by Western Union or MoneyGram. This is not, like trying to be a money mule for somebody to cash out Bitcoin or something like that. So both of those folks, paid hundreds of millions of dollars to the feds in fines and agreed to change their practices. Walmart, of course, is going to fight this tooth and nail to the end because A, they don't want to pay hundreds of millions of dollars of fines, and B, they don't want to be labeled as a money launderer. But I think the evidence is pretty clear, and in the end, Walmart will settle because there just isn't any way out for them. But nonetheless, they're going to try, at least for the moment. So that's all we have for today. Until next time, thank you for your attention. We appreciate it. And if we can help you with any of these things, please let us know. Thanks.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized businesses. They include everything needed to secure your business and meet compliance requirements. Visit our website at turnkeycybersecurityandprivacysolutions.com to learn more.